Are you guys able to share your video this time? Make sure. Not your video, your PowerPoint.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. So share screen. I go to that. Share this.
Do you see it now? Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Do you know how, if a person wants to look at all of them, say like if I want to go back and look at each one of the presentations, or if somebody wants to go back and look at all the presentations, do you know how that's done? Okay, I can't,
mute.
You're mute, I can't hear you.
Thank you. I suspect that later on they will let us know where to find. I know that the recordings I've done, I have not sent to them yet, but I'm pretty sure they'll ask us or tell us where to send them, and then they'll have them available.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Doesn't look like they've assigned people to rooms yet.
Okay, I see 63, 66 people.
Mm-hmm.
Guess I have the devotion section maybe. So how has your week been?
Whew. You know, I'm just thanking God, taking one day at a time, Dr. Matthews.
Yes.
Because when does the school year start?
The freshmen have come. Officially, the academic year began this week. We had colloquium.
Okay.
And the freshmen are on campus and classes begin on Monday.
Oh, wow.
I am nowhere near ready. I had a
summer goes so fast.
I coordinated a summer bridge program last week, and that just took up my whole of last week, and I really couldn't do much of anything else. And then I was tied up for 2.5 days in colloquium.
Right.
And it's here.
How many hours are you teaching this semester?
Probably about, I have a 1-hour class I teach for history department. So it's 7 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Teach my 2 regular classes and then that 1 hour class. I teach a logic class for political science.
Okay.
Um,
And what are your administrative and other responsibilities?
what are they? Cleaning classrooms. Whatever needs to be done. It's a lot being a chair.
Yeah. I recall bringing in a new faculty member at Alabama A&M, and the office was not ready. Didn't have carpeting down on it. And I went to Home Depot and bought the carpeting and put it down.
Oh, wow.
I made them pay for the carpeting, but I said the labor was free.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
you do whatever you have to do.
Because when you're chair, you have all those administrative responsibilities, you have all the different meetings that you have to go to, and you're still teaching, you're advising students. You're busy.
Yeah. And I think I was still putting the responsibility on you as being Sabbath school leader.
Yeah, I had to kind of step down from the general Sabbath school superintendent. I still would like to be a part of Sabbath school once they get it back going. But being the one in charge, and it was too much. Yeah.
That's how many years you were in that position? You were doing that for a little while. It's typical to me.
Yeah, for a few years. Yeah, and then COVID came and changed everything, and it was a good time for me to step down after that.
This will be our last year being family life directors.
Oh, okay. We'll miss you.
Well, we'll still be in town, but we won't have this responsibility.
I'm sure you'll still, do your part.
Yeah,
That area as well. It's in your blood. You can't help it.
That part is true, but there are young warriors out there. People your age.
Yes. New ideas and new ways of doing things. So.
Yeah, that's helpful. Well, we have a visitor with us, Miss Vivian. Welcome to our Keys to Emotional Wellness session. We will begin shortly, just waiting to see if a few more people will enter our session.
Lisa, did you say something to me?
Hi, I was just saying, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Vivian Brown. Yeah, Vivian Brown. They're having problems getting people in. The rooms weren't open, so they're doing it one at a time.
Oh, okay, I
was
see.
wondering what the problem was. They still have 58 people who are not in a room yet.
Right. Dr.
Williams.
Goodridge is calling the names out.
Yeah, Goodridge, and I think is it Christian that operates? I think he opened the rooms, but the people say they can't get in.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm gonna go on mute.
Okay.
We'll just wait a few more minutes for a few more people to come in.
Sure.
I guess while we're waiting for people to come in, I could talk to you all about some of the things that we talked about in previous sessions. This is our 7th week doing this, and the first week we talked about emotional wellness. It was defined. And then week 2, we talked about anxiety. And the Matthews gave us some tips on how to help reduce anxiety and how to get help to overcome anxiety. How to respond to trauma was the 3rd week. Overcoming depression was the 4th week. Coping with grief and mourning, week 5. And last week we talked about breaking substance and behavioral addictions. So this week we are excited, and you guys can see that on the screen actually. We'll be talking about stress management, which, like I said last week, I know I need to hear this one for sure. So we will go on and get started, I think. What do you think, Drs. Matthews?
Yes, we can do it. Yes.
Okay, so we'll go on and we will have prayer, and then I'll do a brief introduction of the Matthews. So let's pray. Let me remember to record. Excuse me. Our kind and Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to you for bringing us together once again to hear keys to emotional wellness, dear Father. We thank you for Drs. Matthews and what they've presented to us over the last 7 weeks or 6 weeks, dear Father, and I pray that you will continue to lead and guide them during this session as well. We thank you for each person who has come to hear the word that is being presented. And I pray that we will all take this information and apply it to our lives so that we can live better emotional lives. These things I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so Dr. Calvin Matthews has an earned doctoral degree in college counseling from Michigan State University. He is a licensed professional counselor in the state of Alabama. Dr. Belvia W. Matthews received her doctoral degree in clinical psychology from Michigan State University. She is a licensed psychologist. Drs. Matthews have been married 52 years. They are owners of Psychological and Counseling Associates, which is a full-service mental health facility. The Matthews are currently the leaders of the Family Life Ministry at the Oakwood University Seventh-day Adventist Church, and Dr. Calvin Matthews, is also an elder. So, Drs. Matthews, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. We are excited about being here. This is week number 7, and we are going to be dealing with stress management. And we like to start off each time with a Bible verse. And today we're starting off with Matthew 6:34, which says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and sound mind. So we will approach this topic with that in mind. And let's talk about a very stressful day. In the book, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, Alexander had a day when everything goes wrong. He gets gum in his hair, tips on his skateboard, get crumbs in his car, and deserted by his friend, goes to the dentist and falls in the mud. At home, he's scolded by his mother, gets in trouble with dad, have lima beans, which he doesn't like for dinner, gets soap in his eyes, and is left alone by the cat. We could say that was a bad day, that was a stressful day. Um, so, what is stress? Stress comes when the demands that are made upon us are greater than our resources, and that creates stress. For example, if your rent is $500 a month and you have 18 or $800, then that is not a problem because you have the resources to pay the rent. However, if your rent is $500 and you only have $100, then that will create stress because you do not have the resources. And in this case, the resource was money. Sometimes the resource might be inability or lack of skills. There is something that you want to do and the demand is greater than your skills. You're not equipped to do it. So lack of skills, lack of knowledge can be what you do not have. Stress is the pressure from the outside that makes you feel tense on the inside. So we're saying that stress primarily comes from the outside. You have too much to do, too many demands, too many things have gone wrong in a very short period of time, and there is tension on the inside. Some pressures are in your control, and we can control it. A lot of our stress can be self-inflicted because of the bad decisions or poor decisions that we have made. In the long run, however, it is not the pressure, but it is how we react to it. You may not have control over what goes on in the pressure from the outside, but you do have control of your response and how you react to it. Resilient people can handle stress without suffering the negative physical and emotional effect, because stress will cause both physical and emotional issues. Stress. Have you ever had a day when everything seemed to go wrong, as we talked about in the book with Alexander? Bad day can make it hard on your relationships, because when you have too many things go wrong in a short period of time, it is hard to be patient. It is hard to be loving. It is easy to become very tired and frustrated, overwhelmed, angry. And when you're going through those kinds of stress and strain, it is hard to be a good friend, a good spouse, a good colleague, or even a good friend, because you may become irritable, lack of sleep, and it will impact your relationship with others.
And I have this quote that I want to read. It says, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. And so that's something important to remember, because many times when a person is under stress and they're continuing to do the same thing and they're wondering why there's not a difference. So what we want to do is, in the presentation this evening, we're going to be looking at things of what we can do that's maybe different, which can help reduce some of the stress that we're under. So the first thing that a person wants to do is acknowledge that they are having stress and the effect that it's having on you, versus kind of pretending that, oh, everything's okay, everything's okay. So when we talk about managing stress, first you want to acknowledge that you are experiencing stress. And I have this Bible text, and it reads, "But godliness and contentment is great gain." So what we want to do is, as we depend on the Lord to give us wisdom and then follow through with some of the things that we know that will make a difference, then we are going to have that feeling of contentment, that feeling of peace. So what we want to move toward then is replacing the stress that we have with peace. And so when we say peace, it doesn't mean that we're not going to have some trials and tribulations. It doesn't mean that we're not going to experience maybe your boss giving you a lot of assignments. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at, okay, what are the things that I have control over? What are the things that I can do to make a difference? What is the perspective that I can have as I deal with the stress that I'm going through? And then also, we're going to talk about developing a personal plan. We're going to talk about what can we do to be able to manage that stress a little bit better. And so the question then is, how do you react to stress? It's not how your neighbor is reacting, how your colleague is reacting. How are you reacting to stress? So that when a situation happens, are you getting angry? And when you get angry, are you shutting down emotionally and not facing it? Are you getting headaches? Are the headaches to the point that even if you raise your head, it's going to be hurting? Are you becoming discouraged? And so discouraged that you don't even try, you don't even make a difference? Are you becoming depressed that to the point that you're not even getting out of the bed? You're not even dealing with it. Stomach aches. You're having pain. You're feeling that helplessness, and even self-hating. You're blaming yourself, and you're putting yourself down, and you're saying all these negative things about yourself. So then, what do you do? How do you personally react? And when you look at some of those reactions, how do you feel about it? Do you feel that how you're responding, is it going to make things better, or if it's going to make things worse? So what we want to do then, we want to look at a list of how do we deal with the different stressors. So we're going to make a list.
Okay, and you can make a stress list, as you see in this picture here, that the person was opening a can, and everything that's in the can, and looks like tomato soup, is all over her face in a public situation. Of course, that can be stressful. And we talk about everybody has bad days. There's a song about having bad days and good days, but their good days outnumber their bad days. Therefore, that they are grateful for their good days and will not complain so much about the bad days. But anyway, sometimes we just have a lot of bad days. Things don't go well. Things don't go the way we expect them to go. And think of the things that make you feel stressful, because different people feel stress under different situations and different circumstances. So what might make one person feel stressful would not make another person feel stressful. So this is an individual thing that you're doing. You're looking at situations and times that I seem to be more stressed than at other times. List as many things that cause you stress as you can, especially ones that bother you the most. Make your list as complete as you can. And you look at the ones that bother you the most, then you may say, if I could correct just one of these things, would it make my life better? and then you can focus on that one. Maybe your list include being overworked, and a lot of us overwork, and might be that you perceive that you're unappreciated at your work or in your home. There can be lack of money. There are more bills than money is coming in. So you're having financial stress, physical health issues. You go into the doctor, your health is not as well as you would like it. You're suffering some disorder or disease. The stress of disobedient children, maybe the stress a lot of time of being alone. There are many things that cause stress, but remember we said that stress is caused when we have a problem, but we do not have the answers to those problems. Now, a stress reaction list. One of the worst effects of stress can be a feeling of helplessness that comes when, excuse me, we feel that there is nothing we can do to fix it. Here again, you're saying, I don't have the resources. My situation is hopeless and helpless because I have no way of fixing this. And so the stress is there. When we feel helpless, we may stop trying to solve the problem. As long as we identify the problem and acknowledging it and have some hope, and that with God's help, there is an answer to this problem. We just have to be consistent and relentless in trying to solve it, as long as there is hope. But a lot of times when we feel helpless, we stop trying to solve the problem. And then, of course, the problem gets worse, and we feel worse because the problem is getting worse. We're feeling worse. We may become more irritable, feeling more overwhelmed, being more depressed, being anxious. And when we get angry and discouraged, we may even do less. So the problem is increasing because we are feeling discouraged and things are helpless. And so therefore, things keep getting worse, and then you get the feeling that you're trapped. And when you feel trapped, there's no movement.
Now, sometimes we know that when a person is stressed, that they can have physical complaints, because the stress doesn't only affect you mentally, but it also affects you physically. And we just have listed some of the physical and mental health complaints that a person can have. Lack of energy. You don't feel like you're going to do anything. You don't have any interest in life. Some of the hobbies that you used to have, you don't want to do them anymore. And for example, say if a person was interested in sewing and they had a brand new sewing machine, but now they don't feel like sewing anymore. Another mental health complaint would be sleeping. Sleeping too much during the day, sleeping too much at night, a change in appetite, not wanting to eat, even eating too much. When a person feels like they're trapped or they feel like they're stuck, sometimes they just feel like I can't make a decision. And not making a decision in reality is making a decision. And so the person, and if they make a decision, it's maybe not the best decision that they need to make. Irritability and being moodiness, having the moods fluctuating from high and low, and just having a whole mental state of being confused, feeling helpless and hopeless. We've mentioned that, and eating disorders. And from eating disorders, a person could be anorexic. They're not eating enough, and in their mind, when they look in the mirror, they see themselves as overweight, while in reality, they're basically starving themselves to death. Either being bulimic, they're just eating too much, maybe baking a cake and eating the entire cake, but then doing different things to regurgitate So different eating disorders. Then alcoholism and drug dependence, which again, many times people don't recognize that alcohol is a depressant. So they're depressed, but they're thinking that drinking this alcohol is going to make them feel better, but in reality, it's making them more depressed. And then anxiety disorders. Now, we want to look at some of the hidden sources of stress because what has happened to a person affects and influences their perception of what's going on. Having unresolved insecurities or negative childhood experiences, if a person has been abandoned as a child and let's say that they're in a meeting and everyone seems from their perspective to be agreeing with someone else. And so that's kind of bringing back some of those negative experiences that they've had from childhood. And they begin to generalize, and the cognitive perception is really not accurate, but it's their own perception. And so when we talk about those negative experiences, we're talking about sexual abuse, we're talking about physical abuse, having an alcoholic parent, physical neglect, emotional neglect. And so all of those things, even though they might have happened in childhood, even happened earlier in the life, say being with a partner or a spouse who was physically abusive to them, all of those things are going to affect the stressors that they happen to be under. And so what we want to do, there's the Bible text in Romans 8:28, and it says, God causes everything to work out together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Now, we do want to remember and keep in mind that this does not mean that God causes bad things to happen to you, but because God is loving, he will work things out for your benefit so that things will, so for whatever purpose he has for you in your life, he's going to pull it together for you.
Can you cope effectively with stress? Yes, we can, and we'll look at some of the ways of coping with stress. And many of us, a good place to start, of course, is with our spirituality. Developing a personal spiritual life can help reduce the amount of stress. I know that there was some research done, and it was talking about at the end of a person's life, who was most stressful. Was it the person who had a strong spiritual life that believed in God and obeyed with God and was connected with God, versus someone who didn't believe in God at all or was an atheist, versus someone who believed and disobeyed and was just, they believed there was a God, but they were disobedient. And it was just saying that the person who was most stressful was the one that believed but was disobedient, more stressful at the end of life than the one that just didn't believe at all. So one of the things we want to do is so that you don't doubt God at all. One of the things that causes a lot of stress is when you can get to that point that you begin to doubt that God is in the plan, that God is not with you in this stressful situation, a stressful time. And if that doubt come in, then certainly that would be a problem. And we look at Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declared the Lord, plans to profit you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So that's the plans that God has for us. One of the other things we know that stress affects the mind as well as the body. When one is stressful, there's going to be mental stress, but also the body is going to go in the same direction. And so we'll be able to feel it as it impacts the body. And many times people will tell you, and they can figure out where in their body the stress is having the most impact. But for example, they will say that person is a real headache, or that person is a pain in the neck, or I have a frog in my throat, or I have butterflies in my stomach. All of these kinds of things are saying mostly where that person is feeling the stress. And so we need to listen to our bodies and recognize the symptoms of stress in the body. You can identify hidden sources of stress. Identify how you respond when you are being defensive. How are you responding? Are you getting irritated? Are you isolating yourself? Are you attacking other people verbally or even physically? Are you isolating yourself? Identify how you respond when you are defensive. Identify people and situations that trigger your defensiveness. What are the situations? Are you more stressful on the job? Are you more stressful at home? Are you more stressful around certain people? Are you more stressful when you have certain responsibilities that you have to take care of? When are you most stressful, and who are the people? What are the circumstances that triggers your stress because it makes us become defensive? The other thing that you can identify is a certain theme. What kind of things are you talking about and you talk about the most that are stressful in terms of your self-talk? Are there certain subject matters that stress you out, and people bring up certain topics that you become irritated with? I know a couple of friends, they had that they decided among themselves to not talk about certain political situations because they were on different sides of the political issues. So whenever the theme of politics came up, it causes stress in their relationship. So they decided, well, we just won't talk about that anymore because I'm considered a liberal in your mind and you're considered very conservative. We have a lot in common. We're doing business together. But when that theme of politics came up, then that became an issue with them. So they just decided we won't talk about that particular thing or that particular issue. And so there can be certain issues that you haven't resolved. And whenever that theme or that phrase comes up, it brings about stress to you. Recovering from childhood hangovers. We know that a lot of things happen in our childhood that was not good. And because it was not good, we feel that we're taking that further in life and we're responding based on those kinds of things that took place. And my wife talked about some of them, everything from child abuse, being neglected, feeling that you are unloved, not getting the respect that you wanted, being abused in some way. And so not feeling unconditionally loved. And so you have to work out a way of forgiving others as well as forgiving ourselves. And sometimes it is necessary to tell our story, the things that we've gone through in therapy and counseling, or with some of the support groups that we have talked about in the past. And you are helping them to meet some of your needs so that you can feel more secure. Many times in childhood, if we're not well taken care of, we do not feel secure emotionally. And so we have to deal with our sense of security in other relationships. We can't, in our childhood, we may have learned not to trust people to take good care of us. So as we grow up, we still don't trust people to have our best interests in mind. And we are very suspicious and paranoid. And so we have to deal with some of the issues, the hangovers that may have taken place in our childhood.
A fifth technique that we have that a person can use in dealing with stress is learning relaxation techniques. And one is the deep breathing. With deep breathing, what you're doing is you're taking a deep breath and holding it for so many seconds, and then relaxing, just kind of breathing out for a while. And so sometimes if you're in a situation, let's say maybe you're going to be presenting something, or you're going to a particular conference or meeting or teacher parent conference or whatever, and you're anticipating it being stressful, then you're going to just take some deep breaths, hold it, and then relax. And it's really nice to be able to do that outside in the fresh air, not when the heat index is 100 degrees, but when it's a little bit cooler. And so that kind of just helps you to relax. And then the progressive muscle relaxation, you can be in a comfortable chair, and what you're going to do is start from the top of your head to the tip of your feet, and you're going to tense your muscles, like tensing your forehead, and hold that tension for a few seconds, and then let it go. And then you'll tense your eyes, you'll hold your eyes real tight, and feel the tension, and then just kind of breathing slowly and letting that go, and go all the way down your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your chest, your buttocks, your legs, your feet. And so what you're doing is you're relaxing. And then with the autogenic training again, you're practicing this so that you can breathe and relax. And with the imagery training, you're doing the same thing. The difference with this would be you would imagine different things as pleasant for you. Say, for example, some people find it very pleasurable to think of the mountains. Others enjoy, the beach. Others enjoy just the river. So whatever is very pleasant to you that would help you to be able to relax and be able to not be under so much tension. You're imagining those things. Now, the biofeedback is kind of something where you get hooked up to a machine, and with this machine, it can kind of let you know whether you're stressing out and whether you're not stressing out, and what you can do to just kind of relax yourself so that you can learn what to say to yourself, how to say it to yourself, how to deep breathe and let it in and out so that you can relax. And then affirmations. Many times a person is so overwhelmed with negativism, let's say going back to childhood experiences, that when something happens, their automatic reaction is to think negative about themselves. And so sometimes, writing on a little index card and having it on your mirrors. So when you look in the mirror in your bathroom, maybe you're seeing these positive things about yourself. Either having it in your car so that when you see and read something positive about yourself. This one right here that I found, I think is nice. It says, today is an incredible day. Success, prosperity, and abundance. in many different forms, I have naturally found their way into my life today. I'm gratefully enjoy their manifestations throughout my day and happily share these blessings of abundance with many others in order to bring happiness to their day as well. And then there's a list of things that a person says about themselves. And so a person might say, oh, that's just talk, but you're talking to yourself anyway. So if you start telling yourself more positive things about yourself, then that's going to help in stress reduction. Okay, another is developing a positive filter for your life. And this is training yourself to look at things more positive rather than focusing on the problem. And I like to use the example of a cup. You have a cup that can hold 8 ounces. And you have 4 ounces in it, which means you have half of what you would want. And so you can say to yourself, boy, this cup is half empty. I never get things the way it should be. I'm always mistreated. I don't get the full force of everything, the full positiveness. Versus you can say, wow, I have a half a cup. Wow, this is great. I'm going to be able to use this. So when something happens in your life, say for example, you get a job offer and you find out what you're making, and then you find out what a colleague who received a similar offer, what they're making. And let's say they're making 33% more than you. Well, you could focus and be complaining and have a negative attitude. Wow, they're making so much money. This company's not paying me as much as I should get paid. I'm worth more. And you just focus on that and just focus on the negative until you make yourself miserable versus saying, wow, I am so glad that I have a job. I've been looking for a job and I appreciate this. This company has a focus which fits into my perspective of life. And I really know that I'm going to be able to contribute. So whatever the situation is, look at it from a positive filter. And this doesn't mean that if it's totally, negative, that you're going to say it was good for you, but you're going to look at the positive and see what you can do with it. On the news tonight, and mentioned about this young woman who was killed by her ex-boyfriend. And so what her mother plans to do is focus on abuse and focus on the situation when you're in an abusive relationship and how to see the flags, the signs for that. Even though her daughter had left this abusive relationship and had gone a 2-hour drive from where the person was, evidently they found her and shot and killed her. So again, this is a positive filter. It's a terrible thing that her daughter has been killed, but she's going to go and make it a mission of her life so that her daughter's life is not in vain. So that's how you change a situation, even if it's a bad situation, into something that's positive.
As it says, as a person thinketh, so are they. So that's how you can begin to think positive, as my wife was saying, and waking up with each day saying, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And you can make that statement no matter what is going on. And so as we proceed, we want to talk about, we had talked in the past about making a stress list. You can also produce an enjoyment list. And that is list the things that you love to do. Where do you get enjoyment? And what kinds of things that you like to do? And especially if those things get you moving physically. I know it's good to sit down and read a book, and that can be rejoicing and relaxing to read a book. But it also, if you enjoy doing something that gets you up and gets you active, and you see some examples here, someone obviously loved traveling, and that traveling does not have to be expensive, and you don't necessarily have to go a long ways to do that. I remember one time for a celebration, we just checked in a hotel here in Huntsville and saw part of Huntsville we hadn't seen before, with the restaurants we've never been in before, and it was like we were in a different town. And so here again, there's someone like gardening, and that also give physical exercise, and they can do that. That might be a hobby that you enjoy doing, and also exercise itself is something that you can enjoy doing, and it helps with your stress. Also, another one can be doing something for somebody else, even during a stressful time. Like the example they gave of the mother, where while she is grieving the death of her daughter, her mind is set on what can she do for someone else so that they don't have to experience what she is going through at this time. And so by focusing on helping someone else, it is helping her as she moves through her grief and mourning and the stressful situation that she's under. Now, many times when we are already stressful and we're actually stimulated, we need to avoid stimulants. And as we know from a health situation, that's avoiding caffeine. It's a stimulus from the nervous system, and it can disrupt our sleep, reduce the blood flow to our heads, and of course, smoking, nicotine, it increases blood pressure, heart rates, and artery can narrow and harden, and we're taking things in. And let me just make a point here that we're taking things in order to numb the pain. And that can also be eating, taking in a lot of food, overworking, these kind of things that we do to numb the pain.
Okay, the next one is humor. And we know the Bible even mentions how a good laughter is as good as medicine. And so when a person's under stress, it's beneficial to kind of pull away and maybe find a program on television, something on YouTube, and find something that's really, really funny. And just think about it. When was the last time you laughed so much that your stomach was hurting? And you've heard there was a man who was very, very ill, and what he decided to do was that he was going to check himself into a hotel, and he just listened and watched things that was just funny. And so if the Bible says that humor and laughing helps as much as medicine, then we need to do more incorporation. In our lives, we're just so structured, we're so busy. We have the list of all the to-do things to do, busy with children if you are a younger person with young children, busy with your jobs, your careers. And in general, many times we don't just stop and relax and do something that's funny. And then sometimes you might think of you have a friend, and every time you talk to that friend just makes you just laugh, laugh, laugh. And so maybe call them on the phone and talk to them. So we want to keep in mind, again, we're talking about things that you can do, things that are in your control, not somebody else's control, but your control, that you can do to reduce your stress. Okay, and the next is watching what you eat, because what you eat can have an effect on your diet. It affects your health, as well as affect your resistance to stress. And so I just have a list of some things that we're going to mention, and some people might, you might look at it, but you really want to just try maybe a little bit at a time. but eat a variety of foods. Sometimes we're in the habit of eating the same thing over and over versus trying something new. I can remember when we were growing up, my mother would always introduce some type of new item to us so that we can learn to eat a variety of food and kind of rotate it. Avoid eating saturated fats and cholesterol. We go and get our blood tests, and the doctor tells us, oh, your cholesterol is getting too high. So if we would watch what we're eating, drink plenty of water. What they say is the amount of whatever your weight is divided by 2, and that's the number of ounces of water that you need to drink. And eat only when you're hungry. Sometimes, especially, I think with many of us who are working from home now, your office might be near your kitchen, and you have all this, food in the kitchen, and so you might tend to snack when you're really not hungry. So we want to remember the principle of eating when we're hungry. And if we eat on schedule, we'll be eating when we're hungry. Avoid eating processed foods. Eating breakfast, we hear over and over that breakfast is the best meal that we should eat. That is the foundation for what we eat. Then avoid salt, eating more fiber and natural carbohydrates, and avoiding sugar, because many times when a person is under a lot of stress, we tend to eat more sugar because sugar and comfort food makes us feel better. But eating carrots, broccoli, onions, and cabbage, that's supposed to be a very good food to reduce our stress. And then avoiding caffeine and eating what we call that would be real food.
Okay, and also we do this quickly. We've already said physical movement, exercise the body, that helps to relieve and reduce stress. There's a lot of benefits to exercise, as we know. What we're talking about now is reducing the amount of tension that we have. We're making a point here that the mind and the body works together. Whatever is good for the body is also good for the mind. Because we are doing this exercise, it increases our ability to concentrate, it improves our memory, it enhances our looks, it strengthens our muscles, it can reduce high blood pressure, we can get better sleep, we burn more calories, and it helps us to feel good about ourselves mentally, and it increases our ability to manage stress, which we are talking about now. And so we want to avoid any stimulants or alcohol. As you know, it is a depressant.
Okay, now we want to talk about self-talk. And because we're talking to ourselves all of the time, and I really like this little illustration. This kitten is small, but when he looks in the mirror, he sees himself as a lion, as a king of the animal kingdom. And so we want to look at how we're talking to ourselves, because the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And so when we talk about self-talk, we could have a negative thought. And so I have a couple of examples. The situation is a person saying to themselves, my husband will not sit down and talk to me about our problems because he doesn't love me. And so the reality of it is, a rational way is to say, my husband works all day. When he comes home, he plans to look at football this evening. It's Monday night. He wants to look at the Monday night football game. So then what I'll do then is, when he's through watching the football game, then I'll sit down and talk to him. And with this self-talk, many times people generalize. They say he never does this, which is not true. You're just focusing on the situation and kind of making it negative. Okay, here's another automatic thought. My boss did not invite me to her party during the holidays. She must not like me. She plans to fire me. see if I do my work well for her. While if you stop and think from a rational point of view, the rational thought is, I've been working for this person for 5 years. They've never invited me to their house. They've never invited me to a holiday. As far as the work goes, she's always given me good recommendations. And so there's never been a personal relationship between us. And so, coming to the conclusion that a person is going to fire you because they have not invited you, that's what we refer to as irrational thinking. And so what we want to have is more rational thinking. And so, as we said, we want to work on a plan. And so we're going to set goals, and with us working on the plan, we're going to have long-term goals as well as short-term goals of our action plan to reduce our stress.
A personal stress plan, certainly you have the list, read over the list and mark the suggestions that will help you deal with your stress. And maybe just taking one of them at a time. You're not trying to solve all the problems or get rid of all the stress, but hey, what is something that I have control over? I will focus on maybe this one thing, and I will have a plan for what I can do about it. I can take a look at what worked in the past, and maybe I can do something about that. And so you can use them to make your personal stress plan and to carry them out. And so you look at what is helpful and what is not helpful. Some of the things that you look at on the list, they might be helpful, some of them may not, but you were brainstorming and you came up with your list. Were there any suggestions on the list that you thought would be very helpful? You could use were there suggestions on the list that you thought was not helpful at all? You can eliminate them. And what are some things that have worked in the past that is helpful you, that help you in dealing with the stress? And so you can make that decision. As you read over the list of ideas, have you marked those that seem to be helpful to you? And now you're ready to pick one of the stressors and have a plan for dealing with it. And don't plan to deal with all your stresses. Just kind of start with one and build up one at a time. As we said, focus on one day at a time. And so after you've tried out your plan, see how well it worked, you can praise yourself for your success and reward yourself for your success. And then success kind of builds upon success. So as you've made one step and you've been successful with that, you can be encouraged to make other steps in terms of eliminating, not completely, because some stress is good. It motivates us to do things. So you want to make room in your life for the things that you love and replace stressful feelings with feelings of peace and calmness and contentment. And you will find your personal life as well as your professional life and family life more satisfying. And God has set us apart. And we'll finish with this quotation. And what God said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. And God said he comes to bring peace, his peace that is above all understanding. And so now that ends our presentation, and we will take any comments or questions that you can put in the chat.
Another wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes.
As I was listening, I was just thinking, going through, my life and, the stress that goes on in my life. One of the questions I was going to have for you was, Is there good stress? And you did go on and mention that there's some good stress.
Yeah, it's motivational.
Right.
It motivates us to do what we want to do because it says there is an issue, there can be a problem, a situation, or a goal that we want to achieve, and a certain amount of stress, and we can relieve that stress by studying for the exam, working on the project, moving forward with our goals, short-term goals as well as long-term goals.
If you think of your job, that maybe you received a new assignment and it's something you're excited about, but it's still stressful. But again, if you look at it and plan it and organize it so that you can kind of reduce some of the stress that's related to it, then that new assignment is a new stress and a good stress. You know, buying a new house, having a new baby in the house, you know, even preparing to travel. Say, for example, if you're going to go and travel out the country, you know, that's stressful. So those are the things that we would refer to as good stress. And so you still need to learn how to manage even good stress.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. Well, please, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be glad to read it to our presenters today. When I think of stress, or as you were discussing stress, I kept going back to depression and anxiety. And you talked about those, of course, in prior weeks. And so stress is something that triggers those.
Yes.
Right.
So how can a person know for sure that they have stress? I know that you mentioned this somewhat in your talk, but how do you know? I don't know how to word my question.
Well, maybe if you're asking, if you're in a situation and you're recognizing that you're becoming a little overwhelmed with anxiety, you know, you can kind of feel being anxious. And if you observe that anxiety is increasing and increasing to the point that you feel that this is a little bit more than what I regularly are usually feeling, then okay, you can say that you're under stress. And then you start saying, okay, what do I need to try to reduce some of this anxiety that I'm experiencing? And then, you know, kind of following some of the things like, you know, the exercise, like if a person is under a lot of stress, they're just kind of walking, going out and walking, getting some fresh air and that exercise. To me, that's some of the really pertinent things that a person can do to try to calm themselves down. And then if a person starts getting headaches, they're not able to sleep, you know, their stomach is hurting. You know, some of your body is telling you, you are experiencing something that has me with not feeling good. And so what do I need to do then? Your body's telling you need to do something to reduce the pressures and the stress that you're under.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you can do that's under your control is kind of just getting organized. A lot of time we're stressed out, we have so much going on and we're just not organized. And we talked about perhaps just doing one thing at a time and figuring out what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. What is the most important thing for me to do at this time? I do have a lot of things to do. Some things you may find out just doesn't have to be done. And a lot of things will be that you do not have to do it. Remember the advice that they gave Moses about his father-in-law. say, look, you're trying to do too much. You're judging all these people. Put 10 over, put one person over this 10, put this many people over 20 and this many over 50. You can't do it all. And so look at what you need to do versus what you can delegate for someone else to do. And sometimes we might have the feeling, if you wanted something done right, you have to do it yourself. But that's not true. There are other people that you can teach and to show them how to do things and delegate some of that. So getting organized, taking one day at a time, decide on what's important and what's most important, what needs to be done, what does not need to be done. And if there's a problem coming up, you can ask yourself, whose problem is this? Is this my problem or is that somebody else's problem? And you don't have to take it all on. If there are some problems, there are some crises, they're for the police. There's some problem that's for the dean of the school, not the chair of the school, of the department. Well, keep that in mind. And so, asking yourself really, because people will bring their stress to you and you can take on stress that you don't really have to. And certainly, if we obey the word of God, a lot of the stresses that are self-inflicted because of bad decisions or poor decisions that we've made, where we're putting ourselves first, not doing it the way God would have us to do it. So some of our stress is self-inflicted, most of it is not, and you focus on what do you have control over and make sure you're controlling your controllables.
So you have to be intentional
Yes.
in managing your stress. It doesn't just happen.
Right.
You have to put things into place so that you are emotionally well, so that it reduces stress.
And what my husband was kind of also alluding to is sometimes saying no. A lot of times, individuals who, quote, are capable, people continue to ask them so many things. And then sometimes, because you know you're able to do it and that you will be successful in doing it, you tend to say yes. But it's okay to say no. Most of us don't do it enough, but that is something that a person can do more often than probably people do.
And she's laughing because she's trying to practice what she preaches.
I know. I know.
I understand, trust me.
Oh.
So for some people who are task driven, like myself, sometimes, is it possible for you to be addicted to stress? You know what I mean? Like it's almost like sometimes I feel like if I'm sitting down, not doing anything, I'm wasting time. I'm not being productive. Sitting down watching TV was something that you mentioned to do, and laughing and that kind of stuff, which I love to laugh and so forth, but I always seem to feel like I have to be being productive and doing something. And even though exercising, that's something that I've been doing more recently, and it relaxes me and it helps me to reduce stress, that in and of itself it's something that's productive. So I don't mind doing it,
Yeah.
So am I addicted to stress? Is that what it is?
No, not so much being addicted to stress. It's the feeling that I must be doing something that's productive.
Okay.
And sitting down, resting is being productive. God has given the whole day, he said rest. So, and all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. but it's planned because it says there's a time and season for all things, all things. Time to play, a time to work, a time to laugh, and a time to not laugh and be sad. But there's a time. And so what we get mixed up is we don't allow the time for all the things that should be time for. And so the person who is out playing ball, and we are learning now with their children, is not wasting time rather than being at the office working. It's saying there's a time to work and there's a time to be with your children out playing ball. You know, there's a time to be working and there's a time to go out and smell the roses and get a peace of mind and just relax. So laughing, resting, exercising, some other things. If you decide I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to watch this TV program, that's a time for that. One of the things of it is that we get balance and we don't balance the time. And so we do too much to keep ourselves under a lot of stress. But there's a time also to relax. But you have to put it in and you have to be proactive in doing so. So, yes.
And also, I think a person's personality contributes to how much stress they're under. A person who has a more laid back personality, I think it's easier for them to relax. And a person who's more of a, what they refer to as a type A personality, who's more task oriented. For them, they have to sometimes kind of have to learn, sometimes even if their health has to tell them, okay, you're going to have to slow down. And I think it's more of a challenge for a person who is a type A person who has a mentality of doing. And in reality, they enjoy it. They enjoy doing, they enjoy thinking about what I can do next. And so sometimes they need a type B person to kind of tell them, okay, you need to relax and kind of take it easy.
Yeah. Sit down, servant, sit down and rest a little while. There's a whole Negro hymn that says that too. So there's a time for rest, and there's a time for peace, there's a time for war. We got to make sure that we're doing things at the right time and for the right reason. Because keep in mind, it is the extreme that becomes the problem, not what one is doing so much. If you are lazy and you're always sitting down, not good. If you're working and always under the stress, not good. It just simply means pull it in when you're taking it too far in either direction. Most of the behavior, there's nothing wrong with the behavior itself. It's just not being done in the balance. It's not being done in a balanced way. And therefore we'll counsel that there's a time for everything. And we just what we're talking about is balance.
Gotcha. I tell people all the time, I thank God for the Sabbath, because if it wasn't for the Sabbath, I feel I'll be going 24/7. But yes, thank you for that, because I need to allow myself to rest more.
Yeah. And at least you say you rest on the Sabbath, because for a lot of people who likes to work, there's a lot that they do on the Sabbath. There were times in my life after the Sabbath, I was tired than I were any other day, because I was getting up, taking the kids to Sabbath school, being at Sabbath school. We were renting a church, and then from someone else, and after church, we ran out to do missionary work, and after missionary work, it was young people meeting, And then because we were renting the church, after we finished church that night, I had to clean up the church. So,
And then on Sunday, we were Pathfinder leaders too.
Wow.
so after the Sabbath, I needed to rest Saturday night. So, you know, that's what I mean by balance. And I'm glad that you thank God for it, because apparently you're resting that day.
Well, and you know, that's mostly because of COVID-19. It's like that period really helped me to learn how to rest on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Because you know, I mean, I don't think I was quite as busy as you all were, but you know, you had on the Sabbath, you can be very stressed out on Sabbath as well. Yeah, so this is great. Still waiting for questions in the chat. If you have them, just reminding you. I always have questions. So when you all were talking, I think about mindset. You know, mindset is a term that's very popular nowadays. It talks about you have all these different types of mindsets: the growth mindset, infinite mindsets, and so forth. So really, by when you say look at things in a more positive light or whatever, you're developing this mindset of being positive all the time. That's just something I wanted to point out. Also, love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you know, you have to love yourself. You can't expect somebody else to do the loving for you and take care of you. You have to learn how to take care of yourself. Tell your story. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? I know we only have a few minutes. I think they said we have 5 minutes just a little while ago.
Elaborate on what?
Tell your story.
Okay.
Like that was one of the things that you mentioned. Love yourself. Tell your story. I guess you were saying that so that you can release. You know.
Yeah, and especially in counseling around someone who you have confidence in.
Yes.
In terms of your story.
Gotcha.
Someone that knows how to treat confidentiality well, and you get a chance to tell your story. People talk about getting their own voice. In other words, not speaking what you think other people want you to talk about or be about, but you're telling your story. Because nobody has had the exact experience that you have had.
And sometimes in telling your story, even if you're not talking to anybody, you can do it in journaling. Many times people are going through living in very stressful situations, but writing down how this is affecting you, what is happening to you, what are your thoughts, what is, we talked about different childhood issues, how you're journalizing the situation that you are in to a previous
yeah, they're about to cut us off.
Okay. But anyway,
Sorry, everybody.
This meeting is being recorded.
Always smiling. How about this?
Goodmans.
Yes.
What y'all cooking?